First thing you need to do is to remove the rubber gaiter, which is a case of just pop your hand up. There's a little tab on it. You can pull it back. Just pull it to one side, and then you'll be left with a, I think it's a 10 or a 12 mil, and you need to undo this from the bottom of the gear stick. Straightforward. It has a captive nut the other side, so it's a case of remove that bolt. So 12 mil. I'm using a ratchet spanner just for ease, but it's a case of just remove this bolt. So once the bolt's out, just pull the selector arm down and it's clear. And then you need to get back in the vehicle. Now the gear stick's disconnected from underneath, you need to remove your gear knob, then remove the gaiter, which is quite easy. Always find just pull up from the back, it'll release for you. You don't need to take everything off. Just put it over out the way. Then you're left with 4 10mm bolts. So you need to remove these 4 bolts. Okay, once 4 bolts are out, lift the metal plate. The rubber gaiter should come up with it. Put that to one side. Then you're left with another little rubber boot. You need to lift that one up, pull that off. You're left with 3 10mm bolts, so remove those. Okay, the plate will lift up because the gear stick has a spring underneath it, so remove your plate and then you should be able to extract the gear stick and the spring. Okay, so now we need to remove the rubber from the actual shaft. So easiest way, open the vise slightly, stick it in upside down, hold it in place, and just a gentle bit of persuasion, and away it falls. And there's your old shaft. So new shaft, I've already pre-greased this one up. Just put a bit of copper slip or whatever you've got grease wise, and then this is the reverse. You need to put the shaft in the top so that the rubber with the open face is facing upwards, and then just gently tap it back in, and that's that part done. Okay, so all fitted up. You need to insert the little ring which comes in the kit. Well, little, it's quite a heavy ring. Drop it into the gear stick bed. Take the spring, sit it on top. Now your gear stick, back down through the shaft, into the hole. Remembering it will only go one way. There's a little lug one side, just here, which will fit into the left hand side. Push it down, then you have a spacer plate. You need to put that on next. Sits over the top. Then you take your original plate, that sits over the top. This is what holds all the stick back in place, so put that back in. 3 10mm nuts, bolts. So push the stick down. I'm not left-handed, so it may take a little while. So once you've got one in, you can release the tension to pick up your others, and then just work your way round. Leave them relatively loose to begin with, don't over tighten them to start, because you're going to need to adjust the plate on the top. Remember, on the little marker plate there is a little arrow which points to the right. This is where your reverse gear will sit. You need that arrow sat up facing you, and the little lift in the plate sat up as well. This will allow you to select reverse. So the easiest thing to do, get all the plate lined up where you think it needs to be. Just pinch the nuts up or the bolts up slightly, and you should be able to select where the stick's going to be. So the next thing we need to do is get under the vehicle and put the 10mm bolt back through. So all the bolts back in place, gear stick's all in place. It's still loose because you need to attach it to the fork underneath. Like I say, leave the bolts just pinched because you're going to need to move this and adjust it slightly once the gear sticks is all connected up underneath. So refitting is just line the stick up with the fork, put the bolt back in. You can do most of it up finger tight to begin with, and then you'll just need to pinch it off with your spanner. And just refit the rubber boot. What you need to do is just make sure you can select each gear. So that was first, third and fifth. Line your plate up with the little stick on the side for fifth gear. Do up your retaining plate, 3 bolts, and then just make sure that you can actually get it into gear. It's a lot easier when you sat the passenger the driver's side than the passenger side. And to select versus, push down and across, make sure that the little pin clears the plate when you do so. Okay, once you're happy with you've got it in place and it's going to go into each gear, you need to refit the rubber boot. Okay, so now it's all adjusted, so fifth, clutch please, and then sixth gear. As you can see, the little stop hits the plate so you can't mistakenly throw it into reverse, and then reverse is push down under the plate and back. So now you're ready to put the rubber boot back on. So slide that on over the top. May well help to put a little bit of grease around this bit because you need to stretch the rubber slightly to get it round the little shank. It's only a dust boot to protect it. Just make sure it's all fitted back in. And the next bit is the top rubber boot. It sits over the top, and you have this little plastic spacer which goes on. Now I find it easier to put this in through the bottom of the gator, force it upwards, something like so, and slip that back on at the top. And on your metal plate you have an arrow which points to the front. Put that back in the vehicle, and then it's a case of refit your 4 bolts back in. All 4 bolts back in place. You've got this little, I don't know what you call it, a bit of soundproofing, bit of old rag I call it, but it's sits in the top. Then put your gaiter back on, swap it over the stick, line it all up, just a little push, puts it all back into place. And then refit your gear stick. I like to have a little extender on mine. After fitting it, we're going to go for a little test ride, show you how short the shift is. Whilst we just did here, that's first selected, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth, and then of course reverse. So we'll go off for a little spin up the road. So first selected and away we go. Feels nice and precise as you put it into gear. Feel it sort of lock in as you go in. As you audibly hear it going in as well. Second, third, fourth, fifth. Enhance the actual feel of driving the vehicle. Actually becomes rather light as well as in the movement. The throw is definitely shorter.